I feel like the studio display perfectly represents the battle between the two types of consumers we all generally boil down to: price buyers and value buyers. Price buyers typically care most about the bottom line. Does this product do what it's supposed to do? And does it cost as little as possible to possess that functionality? Who cares what it's made out of, what it looks like? Does it work? And is it cheap? It's an expense, not an investment. While value buyers typically care about the value that product provides, the experience it creates. Does it function while reducing friction in your workflow? Does it make you feel good? Is it well made? What's the resale value? Does the design flow with your creative space? What impact does it have on how you earn a living? It's an investment, not an expense. And at $1,599, it's quite the investment for a 5K Retina display that's been standard on the now discontinued 27-inch iMac for several years. The 27-inch iMac got you the same display as the studio display, the webcam, the speakers, and you got an entire computer inside for just $17.99. And I think that's the sticking point that really makes the battle within all Apple-specific consumers, both value buyers and price buyers, really grapple with the decision to purchase an Apple Studio display. Why would you pay $1,599 for a studio display when just a year or so ago you could get an entire computer for $17.99? In my opinion, the 27-inch iMac has historically been drastically underpriced given its value, and maybe it's possible the release of the studio display is a bit of a course correction from Apple on that front, especially with the 27-inch iMac for the time being discontinued. Now, I don't want to dwell on this point for too long, but I do think this really was the crux of the controversy. Hello. Did you wake up from your nap? Oh, you got Minnie? Yeah. Dad is making a video. Do you want to listen to me?
Where's Mom?
Mama's upstairs. She's gonna get them soon. I gotta finish this and then I'll watch you while Mama goes and gets them. Do you want to go upstairs and and watch a show?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi. Careful, watch your step. Careful. All right, let's resume. Now, I don't want to dwell on this point for too long, but I do think this really was the crux of the controversy about this display. There was nothing groundbreaking in the display technology, and it was $200 less than the base 2020 27-inch iMac. It was just too much for our consumer minds to reconcile. But slowly, I think some of us are breaking through and understanding that even at $1,599, the studio display is a good purchase, especially if you, like me, are a value buyer. So I've had my studio display since its release date back on March 18th of 2022. I bought it day one, sight unseen. And although I haven't had an earth-shattering, mind-blowing experience with it, I really do appreciate it. First, it's beautiful. Many of the reviews I've watched have reminded all of us that there isn't another monitor out there that's even close to the design and build quality of the studio display. Everything else is plastic, there often aren't built-in speakers or a webcam. Does that level of build quality really matter when it comes to a computer monitor? Not to everyone, but to those of us who value design and design aesthetics, it does. So the design and build quality, that's the first reason I'm really happy with my purchase. Another reason is that I know the monitor will retain a lot of its value over the years. I'm sure there's an entire group of consumers who knew they'd buy a studio display on the used market, and if Apple releases an updated version with a better display panel, these will hit the used market and help early adopters cover a good chunk of the cost of their next monitor. The demand really is there. Now, can you say that about a 27-inch 4K Dell display you snagged for $400 on Amazon? I think it's doubtful. I've had Dell monitors that I've ended up donating because I couldn't unload them on eBay or Facebook Marketplace. Now, something I've been curious about is how much does Apple's old Thunderbolt display still sell for on eBay? I've got two of them here in my edit bay. Recent completed sales on the Thunderbolt display are as much as $285. That's nearly 1/3 of the original price of $999. So keep that in mind with the studio display. You may spend $1,600 on it today, but 6, 8, 10 years from now, you might be able to get $400 to $500 for it on the used market. So let's touch on a few things I'm sure you want to know about when it comes to my experience with the studio display. First, let's talk about the speakers. I've never used them once. I've got studio monitors in my edit bay and all of my audio runs through my Behringer X-Air XR18, so I have zero need for the internal speakers. From all the reviews I've seen, everyone thinks they sound great, and I'm sure they do, but I don't need them. So moving on to the next thing. Let's talk about the webcam. You know, it's fine. It functions, it gets the job done, but it is nothing special. I like that it's built into the display, and when I'm not using my live streaming setup to jump on a Zoom call, I'll use the studio display. If you, like me, need to occasionally rely on the display's webcam, you can rely on this one to transmit an image of yourself to other people, and they may or may not recognize you in that image. But it's a webcam, so lower your expectations, like really lower them a lot. The controversial power cord. A lot of reviews also point out that the power cord isn't removable. I don't know. I don't really care. In my entire lifetime of using monitors, the cord has never really been in a place where it's a tripping hazard. The only instance where it would be really convenient to have it be removable, like the Thunderbolt displays, is if I need to power it off and it's a pain to get under my desk and get access to the surge protector where it's plugged in. Now, why would I need to power it off? My Thunderbolt displays sometimes can kind of get a little glitchy and I've had to unplug them to get them back in line. Maybe as the studio display gets older, something like that could happen, and unplugging it would be a troubleshooting step I could take. I don't know. Now, has needing to unplug it from the back of the monitor as opposed to from the surge protector or the wall outlet come up at the 8 months I've owned it? No, so there's that. Next, let's talk about the screen. I think it's great. I love spending long hours editing in Final Cut Pro with this screen. The contrast is great, and I think the colors look really good. But there is a significant difference between what I see on the studio display in my viewer in Final Cut Pro and what I see on my 27-inch Dell monitor that I use as my preview monitor. Luckily, I'm only using the preview monitor for full screen playback while I edit. I'm not using it for color reference, so color accuracy isn't of paramount importance. The preview monitor's image is a bit flatter with less contrast. Shadows seem a bit lifted, and overall it has a bit of a green cast to it. This monitor is calibrated, but I regret to say that I haven't calibrated since its initial calibration probably 2 years ago. Now, when I'm watching my published YouTube videos back on my TV, there's some noticeable differences than watching back on the studio display itself. When I watch on my TV, there's slightly less contrast, and overall, the image is just a touch more green, whereas the studio display has much more contrast and seems to lean a bit more to magenta overall. I'll admit it is a slight annoyance because I feel like what I see on the studio display isn't an accurate representation of what I or viewers will see when watching my videos on their phones or televisions. But it isn't so bothersome that I'm going to spend a day or two figuring out how to fix it. And I'm certainly not going to export my videos, upload them to YouTube, preview them on my TV, and then go back to the edit to make adjustments based on that, upload it all over again, and get it a little bit closer to the way I want it. It's just too time consuming and it slows down my release schedule way too much. But there's one feature that makes the studio display, even if it didn't have a webcam or speakers, 100% worth it at the $1,599 price point. And I'll admit my passion for this feature might make you question my sanity, but it's a feature that, after using a non-Apple display, after using only Apple displays, I pretty much can't live without. And that feature is instant wake from sleep. I don't know what the official Apple wording is, or if there even is official wording from Apple about this feature, but all of you who have worked on a cinema display or a Thunderbolt display or the Pro Display XDR or lifted the lid on your laptop like Craig did in that one keynote where we all made memes out of it.
How cool is that?
When you sit down to work and you've got a Mac Pro or a MacBook Pro or a Mac Mini or a Mac Studio hooked up to one of these displays, the screen comes to life instantly when you hit your keyboard, click your mouse, or tap your magic trackpad. There is no delay, no waiting for inputs to be detected. It just comes on so you can get to work without a moment of hesitation. Now my Dell display, just watch, it takes a second or two for it to come on. It drives me nuts. It just makes me feel like I'm using a computer from 1996. And that frustration, to be completely honest, was the main driver of my decision to buy the studio display. I just wanted a monitor that woke from sleep instantly, that's it. What impact does that hit of frustration have on my work when I'm using a Dell monitor? What's it worth to not feel that jolt of negativity every time you sit down to create? For me, it's worth a lot, about $1,600, and I'm sure there are many other value buyers who feel the same as I do. And here's another point I want to make about how the Studio Display relates to Apple's Mac lineup. The Studio Display is to the Mac as a lens is to a camera. The lenses are often the most expensive part of the camera owning situation, especially if you own multiple lenses. And you keep those lenses for a long time, but you swap out the body every, 3 or 4 years? I think the same applies to our Macs. Whether we have a Mac Studio, a Mac Pro, a Mac Mini, or even a notebook, the monitor is the thing we keep the longest. So why not splurge on one that has incredible build quality, great reliability, excellent speakers, an okay webcam, terrific resale value, and the dang thing turns on the instant you wake it up. We accept the fact that the best lenses for our cameras can sometimes be twice as much as the camera itself, and it's just glass, metal, and plastic. Isn't the camera the most complex, technology-packed component? Shouldn't that be the most important part of the overall package? The Studio Display, fortunately, is about half as much as my Mac Studio was, but I will undoubtedly have it twice as long as I have my Mac Studio. Thinking of it that way makes the $1,600 price tag for me seem like a no-brainer, and maybe it will for you as well. Now, if you like this video, then definitely check out my review of the 14-inch MacBook Pro and the Mac Studio. If you're not subscribed and enjoy filmmaking, Final Cut Pro, and Apple content, hit subscribe and join the channel. I'd love to have you here. That's all I've got for now. Until the next one, everyone, I'll see you all soon, and don't forget, keep chopping that broccoli.